You're listening to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. This is The Gailey Show, or you're watching us on YouTube right now. I'm JP Darbagosian. We're your answer to the question, what queer thing can I read, watch, or go to this week in Minnesota or beyond? Today, I have Joel Sass from Open Eye Theater, who talks to us about their upcoming show, The Dr. Wee Woo Show, and we talk about queer puppets. Then author Adib Khrorram joins me to talk about his new YA novel, The Breakup Lists. But up first, I have a wonderful interview with Harrison David Rivers, who is a Minnesota-based playwright. His new play, A Unique Assignment, is opening at the History Theater this weekend, March 16th, and it will run there until April 7th. Harrison David Rivers, welcome to The Gailey Show, and tell us all about A Unique Assignment.
Well, good morning. A Unique Assignment is a history theater commission. It is about two men, Henry Gallagher and James Meredith, and the ways in which their lives sort of collide at Ole Miss University in 1962 as Meredith is seeking to integrate the university. Henry Gallagher is a Minnesota native, a Minneapolis native, and he was the head of James Meredith's security detail. Sort of one of those like really interesting stories that like you would never know if you sort of like didn't lean in or weren't at some point exposed to his memoir. But he was the head of his security detail. And so the play is sort of about their relationship, but also just about like this Minnesotan man sort of being exposed to Southern culture and sort of being at the epicenter of a huge event with like not really knowing that he's at the center of a huge event until it's happening and until afterward. So it's a fun story.
So for folks who don't know the playwriting world, when you say commissioned, like, did you know about this story and were looking to write it, or did History Theater have the story and they asked you to write it?
Yeah, History Theater came to me. Ron Peluso, who is the former artistic director, took a meeting with Henry Gallagher, and Henry was sort of telling him stories of his life, thinking that maybe there was a play there, and he happened to mention that he was at Ole Miss when it was integrated, and Ron was like, that's the story, that's the one. And so then Ron reached out to me and said, is this something you'd be interested in? And I said, most definitely. And so this was commissioned, or we started talking about it in 2018. It was, I think, commissioned officially in 2022, sort of like post-pandemic. And now it's going to be a living, breathing thing starting just in a couple of days.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how can people go about finding tickets?
I believe you can go to History Theater's website, historytheater with an RE.com. And should be information about the play there, the cast, special events, and also tickets.
So I want to ask you then, did you know about the story prior to, like, the main plot points of the play prior to writing it?
I knew about James Meredith, so I feel like I had a sense of who he was and what he had accomplished. I didn't know about Henry Gallagher at all. It actually hadn't even occurred to me that, I mean, once you know that he had a security detail, it makes perfect sense that he would have a security detail. But what's fascinating is that, I mean, Henry Gallagher was 23. He was like a young guy. He was not terribly high ranking in the army, but he was seen as someone who was smart. He was seen as someone who was resourceful, and he just sort of got thrown into this high pressure situation. This 23-year-old man sort of being asked to keep this guy alive and to sort of figure out how to do that. And I think the other thing that's really sort of interesting, fun for me is that he was asked to do it while like not drawing any attention to James Meredith. So James was supposed to be able to like walk around campus like he wasn't being guarded. So they had to figure out like creative ways to sort of stay in the background so that he could have a student experience, a traditional student experience on campus. So the play sort of details the sort of mundaneness of every day and also the sort of problem solving that they had to do to make sure that Mr. Meredith had sort of a normal college experience. I mean, he didn't have a normal college experience, but as normal as possible.
Well, so what surprised you the most when you got into the research of this and started writing it?
I think I always assume that there's a plan and that people know like how to do the things they're being asked to do and that they are being set up for greatness. But this is like the first half of the play is really sort of funny because he gets this order, like, you're going to Mississippi. And he's like, what? I don't know anything about Mississippi, right? And they didn't have maps for him, so he had to figure out how to get to Mississippi. I mean, it was just sort of, it was a glorious mess, really. Like they didn't know anything, and they didn't know what they were walking into. So I think that is like the most surprising thing, that there just wasn't really a plan. They just needed to protect this guy. Like that was however you're going to do it, like just figure it out is actually like, I think what his like captain said to him, just figure it out, okay.
And did you get to meet with him and sit down and talk with him?
I have met Henry. We also email. He's like really excited that this is happening. He'll be here for opening, which is really, really wonderful. James Meredith's wife will be here also. So it's been a real community effort, which I think sometimes these commissions, that's what's lovely about them, is that you're often working with people who are still living and breathing, and they have their fingers and their toes in the work too. So it does feel like a collaboration.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
I am curious, like, what is one part in the play that you're most proud of? Either as a playwriting, like as a writer, or as a moment for the audience.
I mean, I think the ending is quite lovely. There have been a number of endings over the life of the development of this play, and I think we've arrived at something quite poignant without reaching, like, grasping at straws. Like, I think sometimes you want there to be sort of like we're going to leave you with something. And I think that this play leaves you with something, but it's maybe not as big and grand as one would imagine. It's really, I think, accessible. It's sort of like this is what this man learned, and it's something that actually all of us, like, it's actionable for all of us. So I think I'm most proud of where we ended.
I love that. And I am a fan of This Bitter Earth, your play.
Yeah.
I got to see it at Penumbra a number of years ago. It was so special. And so first of all, thank you for writing it, because it was just such a wonderful experience to sit through, and the way that you were grappling with these issues. And for folks who haven't seen it or read it, can you tell us a little bit about This Bitter Earth?
Yeah, I mean, This Bitter Earth is a 2-character play, and it sort of traces the relationship between a Black guy and a white guy, between the years 2013 and 2015. So rise of Black Lives Matter, a sort of like really treacherous, dangerous moment, I think, for Black men, for Black people, for gay Black people. And so it sort of charts how they sort of live through that together, sort of like the highs and the lows of that. I was really, really pleased with that production. Penumbra they put their foot in it, both feet, really. Talvin Wilkes is the director, my incredible actors, the whole team, and the support that we felt at Penumbra, sort of telling, I think, this really, really timely story. It's a really fond memory.
So I was so thrilled to be able to get this interview, because I loved This Bitter Earth. And so I want to ask you then about, what is your perspective on, you wrote this play tackling these themes, beautiful relationship and the ending. But how do you see things today? Like, your perspective of how the country has gone since writing This Bitter Earth?
Goodness, my perspective. I mean, doesn't it just sort of feel a little bit like things are just rough? Like things have just sort of remained rough, maybe in different ways. But I do think that I think that the play is still relevant. I think that its themes still resonate. I think that my goal in writing, I think, was to sort of promote empathy and conversation. And I think we still need empathy, and I still think we need to be reaching across aisles to have conversations. And I think just to keep centering humanity, like we are people, each of us is an individual, and like really trying to see each other. I think sometimes we forget that like your neighbor is another human, like as human as you are. And and hopefully like all plays are doing that. I do think that that is a thing that theater does. Like theater, like first of all, you have to go there. So you're in person with other people, other bodies, you're experiencing a thing. And then I think that storytelling wants to sort of open you up and really encourage you to see your story in the story being presented, and to realize that like it's not just yours, it's actually like maybe everyone's in the theater. So hopefully that's like what any theatrical experience is going to do. It's going to say like, hey, look, like yes, you are super important, like, you know, and but also like the people around you are too. So try to remember that.
What role do you see the theater having right now in supporting the queer community and also galvanizing us to, you know, fight back?
I mean, I do think that there's a lot of really, really beautiful queer writing out there right now, and a lot of queer writers who are pushing envelopes. I think we're getting such a diversity of queer stories right now. And I think some of them are making their way onto really major stages, which is also very exciting. So I'm excited that there's so much to see and experience. I think even for me to be able to go to the theater and see a life that is like similar to mine in some ways and like vastly different in others, and yet we potentially, like me and the characters are me and the author do identify similarly. I think that that's a thing that didn't exist when I was a kid. It didn't exist, you know, when I was even in college. So I think it's a really encouraging time on stages. And I hope that we go and see this work. I hope that we go and support this work and these artists, because I think that the more representation, the more we can see ourselves and the sort of variety of us, and others can see the variety of us, I think that continues to push the envelope forward in really positive ways.
What's some recent queer theater that you've seen or read that's been life-giving for you?
I actually haven't seen a lot of theater recently. I've been doing a lot of writing, but you know there are writers who I love. Yeah, there are writers who I love. I'm Michael R. Jackson, whose Strange Loop was on Broadway last season. Christina Anderson is always making beautiful work. Her play, The Ripple, The Wave, that carried me home, has been produced in many major theaters across the country. I hope it comes to the Twin Cities. I mean, they're just like beautiful writers writing beautiful stories, hard stories, but like told beautifully.
I'm really excited to hear. Can you share what you're writing right now?
Yeah, I'm working on a number of things right now. I'm working on a new musical about Nina Simone, with a really great group of collaborators, both in New York City and in London. I'm working on a musical about Sophie Tucker, the sort of 1920s precursor to like Bette Midler and Mae West, and which is having a production at Bucks County Playhouse in Pennsylvania this summer, which I'm really excited about. And then I'm working on a number of plays. I have commissions at Roundabout in New York City and Jiva Theater in Rochester. I'm working on an adaptation of A Christmas Carol right now. I mean, so there's a lot sort of in the hopper. I do. You know, I sometimes think that maybe I sleep too much because I really should be making much more progress. But I feel really blessed to be able to dip my toe into so many worlds right now, and to try to find new ways to tell old stories and creative ways to sort of bring lives that we don't know all of the corners of to the stage.
I'm really excited to see and hear more about this Nina Simone project. Do you
Yeah,
have like a time horizon of like, is it a 2025?
we don't. We're having lots of conversations. I think the project is really beautiful, so we're gonna find a good home for it. I don't have an update on that yet, but we're gonna find a good home.
Well, speaking of updates, how can folks connect with you, follow you on social so that they can get all of the Harrison David River updates?
I mean, I'm terrible at that sort of thing, at the updates, but I do have a website. It's harrisondavidrivers.com. That's probably the best way to sort of see what I'm up to. I'm a terrible poster on Instagram and Facebook, but you can find me there, just my name in both of those places as well.
Perfect. Well, whenever you've got a new project coming up, really easy way to promote it, come to the Gailey Show.
I will let you know
about
that would be great
that you have coming up here. So Harrison David Rivers, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thank you.
Okay, well, joining me now is Joel Sass with Open Eye Theater. Hello, Joel. Welcome to the Gailey Show.
Hey there, JP. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So y'all have a new show coming up here in the middle of March. So tell us, what is the name of the show? What is the people can expect when they show up and watch it?
Oh, we've got a bunch of things going on. We actually just closed a show called Honey, I'm Home by Madeline Rowe. That's part of our guest artist series that we run alongside our main stage offerings. The one that's coming up is by another young theater company called An Alleged Theater. Although it has been verified, they are indeed a theater company. And they specialize in kind of pop culture, satire, parody. They're doing something called the Dr. Wee Woo Show, which is a mixture of a live stage version of a children's television program being relaunched by the original creators. But there's a lot of things awry. It's like Samuel Beckett meets, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, basically. And then after that, we've got some crazy puppet activities. So, we're multidisciplinary theater. So we do like puppetry theater, storytelling, music. And at any given month throughout the year, it will be all of that or a combination thereof.
Wait a minute. Tell me more about the puppetry theater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our Open Eye Theater originally started to feature the puppetry work of our founder, Michael Summers. And then about 10 years ago, because it's so artist-centered and focused, other disciplines began making a home here, and then the work starts to cross-pollinate. So if we've got a brand, it is due to the diversity of the work and the people doing it, and the fact that it can be a live stage show that incorporates elements of puppetry or animation or object theater, or a live music concert that is backed by a shadow puppetry show or custom animation, or in some instances crazy modern dance.
I love this. So when you say the upcoming puppetry show, like, are we like, how big are the puppets?
Oh, it totally varies. Like, this is a program that we inherited about 4 years ago. It's called Puppet Lab. And it's a 6-month residency for emerging puppetry and mask artists. So these are folks who have, studied, they've been making, they're doing short works, but this brings them in for a 6-month program where they're mentored and they engage in workshops, and they're given all of the production support to do their first pretty professional, evening length work, 30 to 40 minutes. So it's 4 artists who share a double bill over a 2-weekend festival. And I think last year we had a 6-foot-tall talking vagina named Gloria. We had some really cool shadow puppetry crankies, which are these long visual stories that spool out against a backlit panel. And then lots of other combinations of marionette or hand puppet, or, you've got people who can take stuff from your broom closet and animate it into, characters who've got a life story. So it's kind of been a real popular program. And out of that, people either develop work into, a subsequent presentation, or they are, becoming involved in any other programming that we might have going on here or around town. Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, is one of the hotbeds nationally for puppetry arts. And not everybody knows that, but we should be like tooting that horn, small or large.
What?
You seem shocked. I know you seem shocked.
I did not know that. I love that. Oh, the Twin Cities, always surprises right around the corner. I love that.
Right.
So are there any queer storylines or puppets coming up here in the show?
Almost always, yeah. Gay, LGBTQ, trans communities are super well represented in the maker community here. I know in particular in this year's Puppet Lab Festival, we've got a couple of non-binary artists doing a live action video game that the audience participates in. And then we have another who does a really cool combination of shadow puppetry and marionette work, which has a very specifically gay inflected theme and subject that's riffing on fairy tale lore, specifically The Little Mermaid, and fraught family dynamics. Those go hand in hand always, I think, in the world of fairy tales and puppetry.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. So, when are these shows debuting at the Open Eye?
They're going to show up in the middle of April, so they're heading into their last month. And because I'm in our office, I'm going to glance over here at the wall calendar, so I can say it's going to open April 11th and play through the 24th of April. And there'll be 2 pairs of artists who perform on the same night, but on separate weekends. So like you can come one weekend and get one crazy show, and come the second weekend, it'll be 2 other artists doing 2 things that are completely different.
I love that. That is amazing. And I want to ask, like, puppetry, like so is it because of Open Eye Theater that we have become kind of the puppetry capital or hotbeds of America?
I wouldn't say because of Open Eye, although we've been a partner in this for about a couple decades, but even before Open Eye, in the
It's
heart
been
of the beast, Stefan. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, we're starting our 24th year, not under me, but I'm helping shepherd this like into another decade of vital participation in the community, which, as far as puppetry goes, is always included in the Heart of the Beast Theater up on Lake Street. Really cool outfit called Z Puppets on Chicago Avenue. Last few years, a really cool group that's specifically to advance and give visibility to BIPOC puppeteers named Monkey Bear Harmonic Workshop has been doing lots of cool stuff in the community. And then you've got what we call roving puppet slams, which is like a puppetry slam, a poetry slam, but with puppetry. And we offer a home base to a long-running thing called the Full Moon Puppet Show, which usually performs on a weekend in the month where the full moon is ascendant in the sky, and it's like a crazy SNL variety show, but with very, very adult made and often themed puppetry in all sorts of forms, from the comedic to the dramatic to the highly provocative.
So you have been at the helm of Open Eye Theater for a number of years now. So I'm curious, your take on where we are at with theater these days, right? We've made it through, I guess, kind of COVID. So what is your perspective on where theater is at and where you hope for it to go?
Right. Anybody you're going to ask that to is going to have a different story. I'll share mine, but I'm knocking on wood as I share it, because we were small enough and agile enough that we were able to pivot during the pandemic and the shutdown and stay active throughout. In fact, we were, I think, one of the first groups to actually do like a live outdoor ticketed show in safety while we were still in lockdown. And part of that's because, we're small. And part of it's because we had some cool partners who said, hey, come play on our rooftop or our green space. So I feel if we were lucky to stay active during the pandemic, so we didn't lose fans and patrons. In fact, we gained new ones. Like even from like between last summer's show to the end of our holiday show, we had almost 1,300 new people come to check out theater, puppetry, music, and storytelling here, in addition to the folks who've always, known that they can check us out for something really cool and diverting that's original and made by, artists in the Minnesota locality. Going forward.
Congratulations on that. Yeah, going forward.
Going forward, we want to keep, expanding the circle of who gets to sit at the head of the creative teams for various projects. I think we've had a history of some pretty broad range of voices that get to speak their experience or take us on a journey. But, there's always folks who've been underrepresented, and we do mindfully try to curate, opportunities for those folks to discover that this could be one of their creative homes in the Twin Cities. And we're one of the groups who has a fairly large base of intergenerational programming. So the shows we do are ones that you could bring, the kids, the parents, and the grandparents to. Everybody has a great time. Not everybody's getting the same show, if you know what I mean. There's like some stuff that will escape the attention and appreciation of the youngsters that registers, in a really pleasing or provocative way for those who are older. So we want to kind of keep going along those lines. And we've grown to do about 4 to 5 what we call main stage shows a year. Those are things that will run for 4 to 6 weeks and be fully produced. And then another 8 to 10 partners in our guest artist series. And those are things that could run a week or 2 weeks. And we support them either by presenting them, or if they have a great show but no resources, we find a way to provide what's necessary to make the show, keep the theater running, and make sure the artists are compensated for the work that they're creating.
I love that. Well, congratulations on the success that you are doing, Joel. I want to continue this conversation. So when you've got shows that are coming up here, please, you have a standing invitation to join us here on The Gailey Show. Head to openeyetheater.org for all your show information and tickets and availability, and to see what's coming up next. Joel, thank you for being here.
It was great to be here. Thanks, JP.
Again, for tickets and more information, visit openeyetheater.org. If you haven't read Adib Khrorram's novel Darius the Great is Not Okay, or its companion Darius the Great is Better, then you need to. Adib joined me to talk about his newest novel, which drops April 2nd. All right. Well, Adib Khrorram. I was immediately like Armenian and Iranian. I immediately went to pronouncing it.
But welcome. I also answered awkward pauses from a substitute teacher calling roll, so it's all good.
Perfect, right? That the awkward pause of wait, what's happening here? So welcome to The Gailey Show.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you have a new book coming out, The Breakup Lists. And as a former theater kid, what immediately drew my eye was that your hero is a stage manager. And usually all the queer kids are performers or musicians, downright center in the spotlight. And you're writing about the unsung hero, the person with all the power, the real power, the stage manager. So tell us about your new book. Tell us about our hero.
Yeah, so The Breakup List is about a high school stage manager named Jackson Ghaznavi. He lives in Kansas City, Missouri, and he's queer, he's deaf, and Iranian American, and he is, as you said, the stage manager for his high school. And he really, for the most part, likes being backstage. He likes the power because he's a little bit judgmental. And one of the ways that comes out is his sister, older by 1 year, Jasmine, is kind of a chronic dater, and therefore chronic get broken up with her. And so to help his sister deal with this, he just thinks he'll be helpful by making lists of all the faults of her ex-boyfriends, so that if he repeats them often enough, she won't regret that they dumped her. And he calls them his breakup lists. So that all goes well and good, and he's pretty cynical himself in love. However, the hot swim team captain decides to audition for the fall musical, starts being really friendly to him, and Jackson's like, I don't know what to do with this. But this is like the first actor that's been nice to me because most of the other actors are rude. And then the actor Liam starts dating Jasmine. And Jackson's like, oh, this isn't good, especially when he realizes he has a crush on Liam. But inevitably, Liam and Jasmine do break up. And suffice it to say, drama ensues.
Well, yes, obviously.
Right,
so
just because we're backstage doesn't mean we're not dramatic.
This is true.
As a former recovering techie myself.
I wished I could have been the techie. I was one of those that was, on stage, but always impressed and always jealous at all the technical know-how that techies had, and recognizing very early on they were the true power of the whole theater world. So Liam is our will we, won't we crush.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He's tall. He's a swimmer. He's actually quite nice, but also a little handsy in a way that Jackson does not know what to do with, because he's like, straight guys don't usually do this, but Liam's dating my sister. What's happening? And I think a way a lot of young queer people are like, wait, am I reading this wrong or am I reading it right? Do I want to be wrong or do I want to be right?
So what I love is that you also made Jackson Iranian American, and I folks, longtime listeners, right, of the show will know that I founded the Queer Armenian Library because that was just trying to find anything that was about Armenian Americans. And so I'm curious, as an Iranian American, and knowing, doing my own search, that representation of Middle Eastern and Swana characters and authors is not what it should be. So tell me about representation of Iranian American characters, particularly in queer YA lit.
Yeah, I think all queer Iranian American authors, especially in the kidlit space, owe a huge debt to Sarah Farzan, who is the first Iranian author I read, and certainly the first queer Iranian author I ever read. She wrote Tell Me Again How a Crush Should Feel. And oh my God, it's on my shelf. And I've immediately blanked on the name. Anytime anyone asks me about any book, I immediately forget every book I've ever read. But it's purple and it won the Lambda Literary Award. Oh no. Anyway, first book about queer Iranians I've ever read. And that was like back in 2013 or 2014. So I really feel like I'm following in her footsteps. And there's actually several other queer Iranians writing in kidlit now. There's Abdi Nazemian, who just won a Stonewall Award. There's Arvin Ahmadi. There's Parisa Akhbari, whose debut comes out this month, I think. There's more of us than there ever used to be. And I think that's really incredibly exciting. But I also know that there's like lots of Iranians, and even amongst us, we cannot tell every story that's out there. And at the end of the day, I think my hope is that with every book I write, I'm prying the door open a little farther for more queer Iranians and more Swana people in general to be able to tell their stories. And ideally to show that there is in fact a market, that there are readers for those stories as well. Because publishing, like many businesses, is very risk averse. And so they like to know that if they publish a book, people will actually buy it. And I think I've been lucky to have some success in my career. And I feel like it's really important for me to be paying that forward and making sure others succeed as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So tell us, when does the book drop? How can they order it?
The book drops April 2nd, 2024, and people can order it pretty much wherever books are sold. Their local independent bookstore is certainly like the best bang for their buck, but there's also Barnes & Noble and the Great River website owned by, I think, the world's richest man. I think he finally outpaced the guy who bought Twitter again. So, yeah, or even just your local library. Ask them to get you a copy if they don't already have it ordered.
All right. So, I have a question around. I want to follow up on that idea of representation, but also because you are a YA author and we are dealing with this massive, coordinated, maybe by a small group of people, but still coordinated effort to ban YA books and like anything LGBTQ from, preschool on up to, 12th grade and further if they could get their way. So what has that experience been like for you, however, as a YA author and publishing these books that are unapologetically queer?
It's, it sucks, first of all. Like, it just sucks. There's sort of a pervasive misconception that having your book banned is like great for sales or great for you psychologically. And both of those could not be more true. There was a list that came out in Texas that is frequently referenced that had like 800 books on it that had been banned or challenged. And of those, maybe one or two got the kind of media attention that made people go and say, oh, I wonder what this banned book is all about. The other 798, those books are just quietly removed from shelves, or people just don't buy them in the first place because they're worried about getting flack from parents or administrators. And also, like, when you write for children, usually you're writing for children because you care about them, because you subscribe to the radical notion that children are, in fact, people that deserve autonomy, the ability to explore the world in safe ways, which books are a safe way to tackle tough topics. And also that oftentimes we as authors are drawing from our own lives when we tell these stories, and being told that our own experiences, our own lives, our own existences are inappropriate sort of tacitly also implies that any child in school that also shares those experiences is inappropriate, whether they're a queer child or a Black and brown child, or a child with a family member that's incarcerated, or a child that is the victim of sexual violence. When we say those people are when we say those topics are inappropriate, book banners are really saying that those people are inappropriate, and if they had their druthers, those people would be removed from the public sphere. And I think it's the height of cowardice for any adult to sit behind their computer filling out an online challenge form for a book because they don't have the guts to go and look a child in the face and say, I don't think you should be allowed to be in school because of who you are. Sorry, I'm really, really mad about the book banning thing. And also just, as
you should be,
as a working writer, also like, yeah, unless you're the one or, one of the two people that get a big marketing boost from your book being banned, you do lose sales. Schools are afraid to have you come in and talk to students. And I like talking to students. I think I'm very good at it. Listeners will note what a charming personality I am. And, when we write for kids, it's because we like and care about kids. And being called groomers, being told that we're harmful is really horrible to hear.
Yes, it is. It is. In terms of like talking to kids, so I talk to some like YA authors, and when they say they're writing their books, they will say to me that they're thinking about their own youth and how this is a book they wish that they had on the shelves in their library or in their local bookstore. So for you, as you're writing your novels, like who do you think of when you're writing them?
Oh, I'm very selfish, so I'm always thinking of myself. I'm thinking of 15 or 16 or 17-year-old me who was closeted and like the only Iranian kid in a overwhelmingly white school in suburban Kansas City. I'm thinking of the me that didn't really understand what queerness was until I got older. And I'm thinking of what the kid who is like me might want in a book and how I can make the world a better place for them.
I love that. Can I ask? Because
Of course.
when my mom and her sister came over, we ended up in like northern lower Michigan, which my Armenian grandparents were always like, how did that happen? And even like today, I'm like, how did that happen? May I ask, like, how did your family end up in Kansas City?
Yeah. So my dad is Iranian and my mom is white. My mom was born and raised in and around Kansas City. My dad was born and raised in Yazd. And he came to the United States before the revolution to go to school. Back when America and Iran had normalized relations, lots of Iranians came to school. Lots of Iranians came to the United States to go to school. And so he did that, met my mom, fell in love, and they actually thought about moving back to Iran to raise a family. But then there was a revolution. And that combined with my mom's Midwestern parents being like, what happens if we need you? And laying on like the very thick Midwestern guilt trip, they very much decided to stay. And so since my dad went and my mom both went to school close to Kansas City, and this is where family was, this is where they settled. The rest of my dad's family did leave Iran eventually and settled in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so we got to visit them a lot over summer vacations growing up.
Oh, that must have been a trip to go from Kansas City to Vancouver.
It certainly was. Especially summer in Vancouver is absolutely gorgeous. Or it was before global warming made it so that it's always hot. And no one there like built houses with air conditioning because it didn't used to be hot for more than like 3 days a year.
How dare you come onto the radio and say that global warming is a thing?
Oh no, I'm right. That's sorry. Yep, you're right. Listen, they're already calling me things. What's one more insult?
There is zero evidence that global warming is a thing. Absolutely zero evidence. The fact that we don't have snow this year is just, completely irrelevant to the conversation.
Oh, you didn't have any snow? We had a ton. We had like 3 blizzards in a row in January in Kansas City, which is unusual. Usually we have like a good snowstorm, but not like a capital B blizzard.
Yeah, we have nothing.
It was very strange. You have nothing?
Absolutely nothing. We couldn't even go skiing. There has literally been snow on the ground for maybe a week, and it was like a dusting. It's been wild. It's like 60 degrees outside. It's been 60 degrees a lot in January and February, which is absolutely unheard of here. So it's absolutely...
That makes me nervous. Don't love it.
We don't understand. We don't understand what's happening. And that's part of the point, is that we don't understand. Something that I do understand, though, as I feel like YA lit, particularly queer YA lit, I feel is some of the most innovative and revolutionary queer writing that we've got going on right now, because there are so many, not just tropes, but themes and identities that that you all are able to engage with in ways that I don't feel necessarily that adult fiction has really caught up to yet. But I'd be curious, like, your take on that as a published YA author. Like, do you feel like you have more freedom in the space? Because sometimes it feels like there's a lot more freedom to do some work that hasn't been done elsewhere or before.
I'm always hesitant to say that things haven't been done before or elsewhere.
Okay.
I get where the sentiment comes from, but also, like, the more I do this, the more I learn, like, how many people have been systemically excluded from access to the traditional lanes of publishing, which is, a big 5 house puts out your book. And so many of these stories that we're now starting to see traditionally published in Kidlit have existed for years and years, but were independently published. And so I think it's important to always acknowledge that that I occupy a position of historical privilege, and that I'm able to tell these stories the way that I want and get them out in the world the way that I want, in a way that the folks that came before me hadn't. That being said, I do think queerness is a liminal experience, and queer people are used to holding multiple truths in their mind at once. Mm-hmm. Whether that's multiple conceptions of family, multiple conceptions of the people around us, multiple conceptions of how love can work. And I think that is fertile ground for storytelling. And I think because being a teenager is in itself such a liminal time, I think Queer YA Lit has some really unique tools that it's able to deploy to tell really amazing stories.
I think the nature of coming out and what it can be, what it could be, what it should and shouldn't be, has just blown my mind when I read it in YA lit. Like just the way of, and probably because the characters and the situations are all engaging and coming out in ways that maybe, you know, adult fiction, quote unquote adult fiction, hasn't had to deal with, you know, at all. But like the whole idea of coming out has just been wild to read about in YA lit, of even the idea that we like, what is coming out anymore? You know what I mean? Like there's so, like, to a certain degree, like queer people have been quasi public enough or out enough that maybe coming out isn't having to be as big of a thing anymore, right, as it used to be, or even a thing. Like, and that blows my mind to think about, like, in 20, 25 years, if the planet hasn't burned to a crisp, that there may not even be coming out as a thing, that people may be thinking about it as, yeah, that was something that had to happen in previous generations, but that's not something that we need to do anymore, which...
That sounds magical to me. I love a queer normative future in our little underground bunkers. Or I guess mountaintop ski resorts as the oceans rise, who knows?
Oh, I know, right.
But I agree. And I think certainly, you know, you mentioned that adult books tend to lag behind. And I think one big reason is that 10 years ago now, a group of authors formed an organization called We Need Diverse Books, advocating for diversity and equity and inclusion in children's literature. And they've been pushing hard for change. And that because it was a group of kid-lit authors, that is where the change kind of started and was centered. And though it's slowly trickling out into other genres have even more entrenched straight white people in them than kid-lit did. One need only, you know, look at various versions of, you know, Hugo Award drama, and there have been many versions of that drama to know what's up with adult publishing. In fact, I think this year they might have done some light treason, so who knows? That's an Arrested Development reference for your listeners, but also not at all a joke. Like, might have actually been some light treason.
Oh.
Yeah, you can Google it. It's amazing.
Yeah, we'll have to Google that. I'm curious, where would you like to see YA lit, queer YA lit go?
Oh. I love seeing more and more of it. I love seeing people who haven't had the chance to tell their story get to tell it. There's a kind of constant refrain that happens in publishing in general, and unfortunately a lot of queer people have picked up this habit of taking a trope or taking a topic and saying, you know, we're over that, we're moving on to the next thing. And usually that happens when white authors have had that toy for a while and they're done with it, and therefore they don't think anyone should ever play with it again. I think of it was a couple of years ago when I don't remember who it was, but there was a white author who's like, queer joy is over, we're only doing queer wrath now, which, you know, is a amusing sentiment to have, but harmful if, you know, Black and brown authors haven't had the chance to explore their joy and are being told that their joy is passé because all the white people are ready to move on to wrath now. I find that troublesome. And I think I often hope for a little more self-reflection from the white folks in the queer community. That just because they got their jollies doesn't mean everyone has gotten their jollies. Oh, can I say that?
Yes, okay. Yeah, because we're on the podcast part of it now. But I don't understand where.
Right. Suck it, FCC. You can't monitor me anymore.
When did queer joy become saturated enough that we could even dare? I mean, were there like 12 books in 1 year, and then suddenly we decide that queer joy isn't a thing anymore, and now we've got to move on? Like, that seems really audacious to me, that, you know, a couple people would suddenly decide that we've somehow had enough of something and now we're going to move on.
My experience has been that people love being loudly wrong on the internet. I say as I'm talking on the internet. Oh no, have I set myself up here? Right. I'm about to step on a series of rakes.
Right. Adib, I have really enjoyed this conversation. So I'm gonna say that I'm going to have you back on here, even before you have your next book coming out. Because
I would love to. You say that like it's not only a few months away.
It might be next week. I don't know. Just check your email because
I would absolutely love. I have lots of more very loud opinions to share, so I can't wait.
Exactly. I really look forward to that. So, all right. Well, Adib, one more time, tell us, how can we pre-order your book?
Yes. So you can pre-order The Breakup Lists pretty much anywhere books are sold. Your local independent bookseller, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or even ask your library to put in an order for it, and they should be able to help you out.
Love it. And how do we follow you? Your website, social media?
The easiest way is my website, adibkhrorram.com, ADIBKHORRAM. I have a once-a-month newsletter that is sometimes filled with essays and sometimes filled with anecdotes and sometimes just has pictures from my Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough. I'm also on Instagram at Adib Khrorram. I'm on Blue Sky at Adib Khrorram plus whatever thing they add on Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok at adib.khrorram because even though there wasn't an Adib Khrorram on TikTok, they wouldn't let me use that username, and I'm very mad at them. I'm mad at TikTok for lots of other reasons too, but that one, I'm Adib Khrorram everywhere else. There's not a lot of other Adib Khrorrams. I don't get why I didn't get to have that. And I'm actually still on Tumblr as well. If you want anything about The Untamed or Star Trek, go to my Tumblr, adibkhrorram.tumblr.com.
Oh, I love that. I could have a whole conversation about Blue Sky. I don't know how I feel about Blue Sky. I'll follow you there, though.
Okay, yeah, I'll follow you back. My experience has been that all the smart people went to Blue Sky and all the loud people went to Threads, and you truly need both groups of people for a thriving social media ecosystem.
No, Threads is the devil. No,
Listen, I went someone on Threads tried to copyright the sun. It's a thing.
Hear about that. But I went onto Threads for literally 90 seconds. And I just started scrolling because I have Instagram, right? So you can just very quickly just create a Threads account. And it was literally 90 seconds and it was so much of a morass. And I was just the intensity, both of the hate and the wrongness and the just general disdain that I was like, nope. And I literally uninstalled and killed the account because I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not doing this again. I got off Twitter and I'm not going to do it.
Fair. Did it delete your Instagram account when you deleted your Threads?
No.
Okay. There used to be they called it a bug, but I don't know if it was really a bug where if you deleted a Threads account, it would also delete your Instagram account.
Oh.
As a bonus.
Fun.
But apparently they fixed it because it wasn't intentional.
I have 5 of them for all the different shows and stuff that I do. Yeah, it's becoming a thing.
I can't handle more than one account.
It's a lot. I wish I had lots of money so that I could hire somebody to do all of the social media or just the Instagram because I think I've got 5 and I'm terrible at all of them.
I would love if someone would just make pretty graphics for me and then write the captions for me and I can just copy paste them because I'm a little too much of a control freak to let anyone else access my accounts, mostly because I don't want them to know what I'm DMing my friends about. But just make it look pretty and then tell me what to say and how often to do it. And I'm very good at following instructions.
Yeah, right. And there's got to be some sort of apps that would actually let them do that where they could just post it without having access to your, the personal DMs, right?
I don't know. They could even just put it in just email me. It's here's your Monday and here's your Wednesday and here's your Friday. Copy paste.
Right.
And I'd be yes, please and thank you. Done.
Yes, please and thank you. See, this is rapidly becoming into I don't know if it's the same in Iranian culture, but an Armenian goodbye where it's going to take 5 hours to actually get out of here.
Yavash, Berin. Let us slowly start thinking about going.
I can feel it happening, but I want to be mindful of time. So, Adib, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to see you very, very soon. I feel it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You can pre-order the breakup lists at our bookstore powered by bookshop.org. Go to bookshop.org/thisqueerbook. Coming to the Walker Arts Center is a new performance piece called Black Hole. It will be there March 21st through the 23rd. The artist is Shamel Pitts. Shamel identifies as gay. Shamel is a performance artist, a choreographer, a conceptual artist, a dancer, a spoken word artist, and a teacher. Black Hole is an enchanting performance crafted by Shamel and skillfully executed by his artistic collective Tribe, who are based in Brooklyn. Drawing profound inspiration from Afrofuturism ideals, this is, y'all, a truly mesmerizing piece, which weaves together dance and soundscapes and video projections and light design. I mean, it literally transcends. We have some absolutely stunning photos from the performance that you can see on our YouTube channel. For those of you on YouTube, you're seeing them now. The performances are Thursday through Saturday, March 21st through the 23rd, 8 p.m. Tickets are $20, but there are no additional fees. For more information, head to walkerart.org. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks everyone for listening and or watching. Our podcasts are executive produced by Jim Pounds, creative and accounting support provided by Gordy Erickson, production, distribution, and marketing support provided by Brett Johnson, Chad Larson, Laura Hedlund, Jennifer Ogren from AM 950. You can find us on social media. Search for This Queer Book Saved My Life on Facebook. We're at This Queer Book on Instagram, and we are at _Gailey Show on Instagram. Follow us there for previews of upcoming interviews I have on the show. And until our next episode, see you queers and allies in the bookstores.